Prof.Ed Part 4. Number 1. Do not teach too many subjects. What you teach, the roughly said one philosopher. The primary reason behind the advice is to ensure that teachers A. Cover all the PhilCs or PSLCs. B. Relate their lessons to their students' daily life. C. Avoid failing grades. D. Avoid spoon feeding their students. And the answer is letter A. Kaya makuha tanan sa Philippine elementary learning competencies like reading and writing. Number 2, a student passes a book report poorly written or neatly presented in a folder to make up in the poor quality of the book report content. Which Filipino trait does this practice prove? Emphasis on A. Forma over substance. B. Art over academics. C. Substance over forma. D. Art over science. And the answer is letter A. Forma over substance. So meaning, bisan og sayop, nagpasa siya but or neatly presented, meaning nice ang iyang presentation but ang iyang substance kay sayop or dili siya correct. Number 3. Extreme authoritarianism in the home reinforces learners to A. Work creativity. B. Depend on others for directions. C. Direct themselves. D. Do things on their own initiative. And the answer is letter B. Depend on others for directions. Meaning, nagdepend on others for direction, sige ra siya og panugo, gadepend lang siya sa tanan, dili siya makabuhat sa iyang kaugalingon. Number 4, which did the Americans teach the Filipino which the Spaniards did not? A. Their government. B. Their art. C. Their language. D. Their religions. And the answer is letter A. Their government. Kay only the government nga wala ma-teach sa American. Number 5. The back to basic curriculum is essence and curriculum A. Existentialist. B. Progressivist. C. Essentialist. D. Perennialist. And the answer is letter C. Essentialist. Meaning, essential ang education back to basic curriculum. In the most recent curriculum introduced in 2022 Makabayan as a subject. A. Singles out values education. B. Serve as a practice environment for holistic learning. C. Compartmentalizes subjects excluding Filipino, English, Filipino, Science, and Math. D. Integrates English, Filipino, Science, and Math. And the answer is letter C. Meaning, nag-separate ang subject. Number 7. Approach every pupil as she is or he is without allowing yourself to be influenced by your foreknowledge of his or her home background is an advice for an A. Essentialist. B. Rationalist. C. Positivist. D. Existentialist phenomenologist. And the answer is letter B. Rationalist. Meaning, kita nga teacher, kita ang mag-influence sa mga bata. Meaning, rational ka mang huna-huna. Number 8. The Filipino learner envisioned by the Department of Education is one who is imbued with the desirable values of a person who is A. Makabayan, makasarili, makakalikasan at makadiyos. B. Makabayan, makatao, makahalaman at makadiyos. C. Makabayan, makakaragatan, makatao at makadiyos. D. Makabayan, makatao, makakalikasan at makadiyos. And the answer is letter D. Makabayan, makatao, makakalikasan at makadiyos. Mao ni siya ang 4 core values. Number 9. 6 education in schools implies that 1. Man is educable. 2. Man is free in the choice of his sexual expression. 3. Man has pure sexual instinct. Letter A, 1, 2, and 3. Letter B, 1 and 2. C, 2 and 3. D, 1 and 3. And the answer is letter B. Letter B because man is ma-educate siya. Number 10. How is the latest curriculum introduced in the elementary and secondary schools called? A. The Restructured Basic Education and Curricula. B. 2022 Elementary and Secondary Education Curricula. C. Millennium Curriculum. D. 2022 Basic Education Curriculum. And the answer is letter D. 2022 Basic Curriculum has the three key reform themes. The first is the articulation of more complex and higher level learning goals. The second, the streamlining and integration of learning areas in the curriculum. And the third, the use of creative and innovative teaching approaches to improve student learning. Number 10. Number 11. Sometimes it may be better to make wrong decisions when a decision is urgent than to make a right decision too late. Is a thought encouraged by the A. Rationalist, B. Progressivist, C. Realist, D. Existentialist. And the answer is letter B. Progressivist. Because sometimes our wrong decisions lead to the right decisions. Number 12. What does pataasan ng ihi mentally negate? A. Initiative, B. Flexibility, C. Teamwork, D. Religiosity. And the answer is letter C. Teamwork. Meaning, sa pataasan ng ihi is teamwork or magtinabanga. Number 13. To whom do Filipinos owe the widespread Philippine education system today? A. The first Filipino political leaders, B. The Americans, C. The Japanese, D. The Spaniards. And the answer is letter B. The Americans. Because American kay sila ang higher education compare sa Japan and Spaniards. Number 14. Which is not a characteristic of the 2022 basic curriculum? A. More integrated, B. More holistic, C. More compartmentalized, D. Make use of interdisciplinary. And the answer is letter C. Compartmentalized is a psychological defense mechanism in which thoughts and feelings that seem to conflict are kept separated or isolated from each other in the mind. Number 15. All of this prevent the emergence of the truth which learners and teachers are in search of, except an A. Mindset, B. Must, C. Open-minded, D. Defense. And the answer is letter B. Must. Number 16. Teaching health in schools is backed up by the concept that A. Man has non-tangible and transcending dimensions. B. Man's body is the expression of his soul. C. Man has a dual nature. D. Man is nothing but matter. And the answer is letter C. Man has a dual nature. Stevenson writes about the duality of human nature, the idea that every single human being has good and evil within them. Number 17. Before the Thomasites arrived in the Philippines, who served as a teachers to the colonials during the American regime? A. The elementary teacher certificate graduates of the normal school. B. The American soldiers. C. The selected grade 7 graduates. D. The government officials. And the answer is letter C. The selected grade 7 graduates. Number 18. Who were Thomasites? A. The soldiers who doubted the success of the public educational system to be set in the Philippines. B. The first American teacher recruit to help establish the public educational system in the Philippines. C. The first religious group who came to the Philippines on board the U.S. transport Thomas. D. The devotees to St. Thomas Aquinas who came to evangelize. And the answer is letter B. The first American teacher recruit to help establish the public education system in the Philippines. Number 19. The American teachers who were recruited to help set the public educational system in the Philippines during the American regime were called Thomasites because they arrived in the Philippines on the feast of St. Thomas. B. They first taught at the University of Santo Tomas. C. They were devotees of Santo Tomas Aquinas. And the answer is letter B. They first taught at the University of Santo Tomas. Number 20. A group of Filipino children serve as respondents in a search conducted. The children was aware as they tell what they wanted to be. If given the choice, none of them said to be an American, to be a Japanese, to be a Korean, or etc. What does this finding show? A. Inferiority of other nationalities. B. Superiority of the Filipino. C. Superiority of other nationalities. D. Filipino lack of a sense of national pride. And the answer is letter B. Number 21. The relationship exists between teacher and students when there is A. Favoritism. B. Pretension. C. Respect. D. Prejudice. And the answer is letter B. Pretension. Pretension kay ang relationship between student and teacher. Number 22. Which educational trend is occurring in all modern societies as a result of knowledge explosion and rapid social, technological, and economic changes? A. International education. B. Lifelong learning. C. Nuclear education. D. Team teaching. And the answer is letter C. Nuclear education. Because it can cover the topic of explosion, the rapid social, technological, and economic pages. Number 23. One learns by association and also by insight. This shows that the association of cognitive theories of learning are A. Diametrically opposed. B. Complementary. C. Partly wrong. D. Partly correct. And the answer is letter A. Diametrically opposed. Because ang isa ka learners can learn through association, meaning makipaghalubilo siya or naa siya permi kauban in order to learn. Number 24. A pupil who has developed a love for reading keeps on reading for her enjoyment. His motivation for reading is A. Both intrinsic and extrinsic. B. Extrinsic. C. Intrinsic. D. Insufficient. And the answer is letter B. Extrinsic. Because kani sila nga type of pupil that they feel enjoy every time they are reading a book. Kani nga pupils is wala sila friend, only ang ilang friend kay ang mga books. Number 25. Which is the most effective ways of retaining learned material? 1. Hearing it. 2. Seeing it. 3. Notes complication. Letter A. 1 and 2. B. 2 only. C. All of this. D. 2 and 3. And the answer is letter C. All of this. Because makaber sa atong huna-huna. Number 26. Where are multiple media resources and computers, which is the most favorable result of the optimal use of educational media technology? A. Increased learning. B. Speed learning. C. Interactive learning. D. More interesting learning. And the answer is letter C. Interactive learning. Because multimedia like computer, cell phone, or anything nga mga multimedia. 27. The right hemisphere of the brain is involved with the following functions except A. Nonverbal functions. B. Intuitive functions. C. Detail-oriented functions. D. Visual functions. And the answer is letter C. Detail-oriented is a character trait that means being able to pay close attention and notice minor details. A detail-oriented person is able to give a task their undivided attention and catch mistakes, errors, or changes before they snowball into bigger problem. Number 28. What functions are associated Number 28. What functions are associated with the right brain? A. Visual, intuitive, logical. B. Visual, intuitive, nonverbal. C. Visual, nonverbal, logical. D. Visual, logical, detail oriented. And the answer is letter B. Number 29. John Watson said, "Men are built, not born." What does this statement point to? A. The ineffectiveness of training on a person's development. B. The effect of heredity. C. The absence of genetic influence on a person's development. D. The effect of environment stimulation on a person's development. And the answer is letter B. Because ang isa ka person, mabutan siya ug ma-develop surrounded by the people or ma-develop ang iyang maturity. Number 30. Under which type of guidance service does the concern of schools to put students into their most appropriate courses fall? A. Research service. B. Individual inventory service. C. Placement service. D. Information service. And the answer is letter B. Number 31. Which is an advantage of teacher-made tests over those of standardized tests? A. Highly reliable. B. Better adapted to the needs of the pupils. C. Highly valid. D. More objectively. And the answer is letter C. Highly valid. Because ang isa ka teacher magbuhat siya og task din makita ni teacher ang outcome sa iyang pupils kung naba siya na-learn. Number 32. Which with the number of senses to be stimulated to the criterion, which one should be first in the list? A. Audio. B. Audio-visual aid. C. Visual aid. D. Multisensory aid. And the answer is letter B. Audio-visual aid, meaning madunggan ug makita. Number 33. Which refers to the Filipino trait of practicing conflicting values in different venues with different values, different social groups. A. Crab mentality. B. Kanya-kanya mentality. C. Procrastination. D. Split personality. And the answer is letter C. Procrastination. Mahimo nimong habit nga magtinapol na lang ka. 34. Richard excels in classifying different types of leaves and rocks. He loves to collect specimens and catalogs them. His strength is A. Naturalistic intelligence. B. Intrapersonal intelligence. C. Spatial intelligence. D. Essential intelligence. And the answer is letter B. Intrapersonal intelligence. It means mamahala na lang siya. Number 35. Students says bahala na and braves the storm for a test. In this situation, which is expressed by the students bahala na? Lack of self-reliance. B. Willingness to take rest. C. Lack of foresight. D. Indolence. Sa 24 is individuals who are strong in intrapersonal intelligence are good at being aware of their own emotional states, feelings, and motivations. And the answer is letter B. Willingness to take risks. Mamahala na lang siya. Number 36. It is easy for children to learn language because each person has a language acquisition device that predisposes one to acquire language. This theory is espoused by A. Watson, B. Gardiner, C. Chomsky, D. Piaget. And the answer is letter B. Gardiner. Number 37. Miss Cortez is teaching a 3-year-old boy how to put on his shirt. She might first reward him for placing his right arm in the right sleeve, then the left arm in the left sleeve, then buttoning the front of the shirt, then tucking the shirt into his pants. This technique is called A. Conditioning, B. Fading, C. Chaining, D. Reinforcement. And the answer is letter A. Conditioning. I-condition niya ang mind sa bata. Number 38. According to Erikson theory, the age 3 to 5 is largely A. Mischievous, B. Egocentric, C. Lazy, D. Altruistic. And the answer is letter B. Egocentric. Number 39. Teacher S wants to show to the class a magnified picture of Mayon volcano mounted on a band tape. Which one will she use? A. Overhead projector, B. Opaque projector, C. Slide, D. Film strip. And the answer is letter B. Opaque projector. Opaque projectors are typically used to project image of book, pages, drawing, mineral specimens, leaves, and etc. They have been produced and marketed as artist enlargement tools to allow image to be transferred to surfaces such as prepared canvas or for lecturers and discourses. Number 40. Teacher V wants to check prior knowledge of his pupils about water pollution. She writes the main topic, water pollution, in the center of the chalkboard and encircles it. Then, she asks the pupils to provide information that can be clustered around the main topic. Which technique did the teacher employ? A. Deductive teaching, B. Demonstration, C. Semantic mapping, D. Vocabulary building. And the answer is letter A. Deductive teaching. Deductive teaching approach. It is a language that starts by giving learners roles, then examples, then practice. Number 41. After having been humiliated by his teacher, students B evaluates the teacher very poorly despite teacher's excellent performance. Which trait is illustrated by students B's behavior? A. Rationalism, B. Impersonalism, C. Personalism, D. Particularism. And the answer is letter C. Personalism. Meaning, bright si teacher pero gipakaulawan niya ang iyang pupils. Number 42. In her desire to help the children build their vocabulary, she maintains a small board at the corner of his classroom for the word of day to teach the children one new word each day. Which method of vocabulary building does she employ? A. Incidental attention to building meaning, B. All of this, C. Direct vocabulary, D. Wide reading instruction. And the answer is letter D. Wide reading instruction. Number 43. Conducting follow-up studies of graduates and dropout is guidance service that falls under A. Individual, B. Research service, C. Counseling service, D. Placement service. And the answer is letter A. Individual. Number 44. Teacher F helps pupils determine the pronunciation and meanings of words by analyzing roots, affixes, and their derived forms. This process is called A. Contextual attack, B. Phonetic analysis, C. Blending sounds, D. Structural analysis. And the answer is letter D, structural analysis. Because it analyzing how you pronounce the word. I-pronounce nimo siya. 45. Researchers conducted show that teachers' expectancy of students often become self-fulfilling prophecies. What is this phenomenon called? A. Ripple effect. B. Hawthorne effect. C. Pygmalion effect. D. Halo effect. And the answer is letter C, Pygmalion effect. Number 46. Age 2 is usually described as the terribles because, according to Erikson, at this stage, the child tends to be A. Inquisitive, B. Sickly, C. Playful, D. Assertive in words and in actions. And the answer is letter C, playful. Because kanang-kani nga pangidaron is mahilig pa magdula. 47. Peter is able to gain a lot of friends. He is willing and popular among other students. He has a natural flair for making people laugh and is almost always ready to help them. He possesses what is called A. Naturalistic intelligence, B. Spatial intelligence, C. Intrapersonal intelligence, D. Interpersonal intelligence. And the answer is letter D, interpersonal intelligence. Number 48. June's age 7 was removed from her class frequent fights with other children. She refused to be disciplined and was to focus in class only for every short time. She also has frequent tantrums. She is suffering from A. Mental retardation, B. Down syndrome, C. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, D. Learning disability. And the answer is letter C, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Kani nga bata is lack of attention. Number 49. Which ones are two-dimensional representations of Earth's geographic and or political features? A. Mock-ups, B. Models, C. Globes, D. Maps. And the answer is letter D, maps. Map kay geographic siya nga makapresent og place. Number 50. Studies in the area of neurosciences disclose that the human brain has limitless capacity. What does this simply? A. Pupils can possibly reach a point where they have learned everything. B. Every child is a potential genius. C. Every pupil has his own native ability and his learning is limited this native ability. D. Some pupils are admittedly not capable of learning. And the answer is letter B. Every child is a potential genius. Kay walay limit ang atong brain bisan og kanang unsa nga atong maunahon is atong buhaton.